All right, so let's talk about our next ritual here. It's called resources. So, with resources, we're helping resources help us to stabilize and tolerate and to genuinely work through a highly activating experience without getting overwhelmed. And so we want to find ways that genuinely help us to make it through the situation, like quote unquote, make it through the situation without leaving our bodies, without disassociating, but rather containing or holding the whole experience with presence. So this is truly about how do I maintain presence while being in a difficult or tough experience. So what's interesting to note is that we are developmentally incapable of self-soothing, meaning that like as a little child, as a newborn baby, we do not have that skill set. That's something that's actually trained, that's taught by our caregivers. And unfortunately, some of our caregivers don't teach us that growing up. So we have to actually learn this mechanism of resourcing. So when it comes to like cathartic release or sort of pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone, those experiences actually teach us how to not be fully present through difficult experiences. If you've ever seen like really intense breath work, maybe you yourself teach it or have been to a breathwork class where people's eyes are rolling into the back of their heads and they're having these like very shaky, crazy experiences. Um, on one level, that's beautiful because they are in some ways like maybe exercising or discharging energy. But what they're doing is they're training their body to not be present with difficult experiences. So the point of resources is that we are able to actually be with to use these resources to gently expand our capacity to be with big feelings, big experiences, big sensations. And so I'm going to give in just a moment here, I'm going to actually give some examples of what resources are, but I want you to consider maybe what are your resources. So there's a couple different kinds. There's internal resources and there's external resources. So for instance, some of us like for me personally, I like, this is so nerdy, I drink a lot of tea. Like tea is for me is such a powerful resource. It's something that helps my body again genuinely get through the difficult thing. As you can see, this sweet dog, it's like right, like those blankets wrapped around him or her, right? Like that's for them. That's a resource. So, what are the things that allow you to soothe your nervous system? And again, this is something that we're always teaching our clients to also ultimately teach their clients. So another good example of this is there are resources to help us downregulate. So again, if you're running a little anxious or what we might call like hot, running up a little bit too much, so some techniques, strategies, activities that could help you personally manage or reduce what we'd call, it's called hyper arousal, meaning hyper like too much arousal in the nervous system. So to help lower those states, we can use things like singing. So, using the vocal cords, producing music can have a really calming effect on the body mind. If you're familiar with vagal, polyvagal theory, and that's a whole module that we teach in our program. But singing, using the vocal cords helps tremendously. Electrolytes, actually, funny enough, just having the enough essential nutrients and minerals can really stabilize our bodily functions and ultimately help us reduce anxiety or hyperactivity. So also like eating a full meal. Some of us forget to eat. So progressive muscle relaxation is obviously a really good one. So anytime you can do a body scan and just start to soften your body, non-sleep deep rest meditations, proprioceptive sensory input. So activities, exercises that provide feedback on your body positioning can be really grounding. So like for instance, weighted blankets or resistance bands can feel really good, or even just like resistance activities like weightlifting can be can be fantastic for that. But movement in general, just like physical activity, helps our body to gently discharge or deactivate too much intensity in our system. So again, these are resources. And then, certainly like watching the sunrise or the sunset can help tremendously. And even cold exposure for some folks, like ice baths, cold showers, can sort of shock the system momentarily, but can ultimately lead to a relaxation response after the fact. So again, these are some resources that can help us down regulate. And then finally, for some of our systems that maybe run on the low side, that run a little cold or a little bit depressive or like sort of bluesy, we can then instead have resources that help us upregulate. So for some of our systems, that's what we need. And what instead of calling that hyper arousal, we call that hypo arousal. Um, so when someone's in a state of hypoarousal, they might feel sort of disconnected, numb, or even apathetic. If you have sort of apathy, to assist folks in sort of navigating this towards like a more what we'd call regulated state, there's a ton of different strategies. So a couple would be like stimulating music, like the beat, like the what am I trying? Like the EDM, like the thum 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 thum. Like if you have like a good driving beat, that can start to boost energy and our mood. And so and music in so many ways connects us to our emotions as well. So I would highly recommend, if you tend to run low and you want to boost your arousal or your regulation upward, I would probably stay away from like some of the moodier music, because moodier music can sort of bring us down. Like the very like, yeah, I think you know what I'm saying with that one. But bright light, like just being in the sun, can definitely start to upregulate. Physical activity, like a quick burst of high intensity activation, certainly like mental challenges like puzzles or crosswords or whatever. Um, Mindful breathing, engaging with nature, spicy food. This is a fun one. So I actually got all of these resources from in terms of upregulating and downregulating from my friend Ariel Schwartz, who's a fantastic teacher, actually here in the Boulder community where I live, and she teaches about polyvagal theory, and these are where I got some of these from her. And I love that idea of spicy foods. If you've ever eaten spicy food, you know that, like, my goodness, does that open things up? Does that get things kind of like, whoa, here I am? And so consuming spicy foods can give us sort of this sudden rush of like adrenaline, and it can lead to increased heart rate, and it can really like wake up the senses. So aromatherapy is great, but also social interaction, just like engaging with others, can start to boost us up a little bit. So with that, hopefully you have a better sense of resources. So what are your resources? The last thing I'll give you really quick is internal resources. So just even like gentle ways of like touching your body, just being present with your body. Sometimes that can start to help. Sometimes some of us have mantras that allow us, or like sort of affirmations that allow us and our systems to sort of settle, or again, upregulate if needed. It can also be just like a way that I'm really being with myself, like the just like gentle breathing. But so there's sort of external, so things that I need to physically have around me in order to feel regulated. But then there's also, again, things that I can have inside of me, like my breath, that aren't going anywhere. They're always there. So that's it for today. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next ritual. We'll talk to you soon.